You ever type something into ChatGPT and it just gets you? Like you write 3 words and boom, it knows exactly what you're trying to say. But then other times, you write a whole paragraph explaining exactly what you want and it comes back with something totally off base. What's going on there? Here's what nobody tells you about AI. Everyone thinks ChatGPT reads your words and understands them, like a person would. But that's not what's happening at all. And once you understand what's actually going on behind the scenes, every weird AI response you've ever gotten suddenly makes perfect sense. In the next 15 minutes, you're gonna understand how ChatGPT processes language in a way that'll change how you talk to every AI system forever. Because here's the thing, ChatGPT doesn't understand words, not the way you think it does. And that's where things get wild. So let's talk about what's really happening when you hit that send button. Think about the last time you asked ChatGPT to write something for you. Maybe you needed an email, or help with some code, or just wanted to brainstorm ideas. You typed out your request, hit enter, and waited. Sometimes it nails it on the first try. Other times you're sitting there thinking, did it even read what I wrote? Here's what's messing with your head. You assume ChatGPT reads left to right, word by word, understanding each sentence like you're having a conversation. That's how humans work, right? You read this sentence, understand it, then move to the next one. Linear, sequential. Makes sense. But ChatGPT doesn't do that at all. It's doing something way stranger. And this matters because every time you get frustrated with an AI response, every time you think, why doesn't it just understand what I mean? It's because you're expecting human comprehension from a system that works completely differently. Picture this. You're at Starbucks. You order a venti iced caramel macchiato with extra ice and oat milk. The barista gets it instantly because they understand the context. They know what venti means in Starbucks language. They know extra ice goes with iced drinks. They know oat milk is a milk substitute. Every word connects to their real-world knowledge of coffee shops and drinks and customer preferences. ChatGPT doesn't have that. It doesn't know what a Starbucks is. Not really. It's never tasted coffee. It's never been cold and wanted extra ice. It has patterns. Billions of patterns about which words tend to appear near other words. And from those patterns, it constructs something that looks like understanding. But it's not understanding, it's prediction. This is the gap nobody talks about. We expect comprehension. What we get is really, really sophisticated pattern matching. And once you see this difference, you can't unsee it. So how does this pattern matching actually work? Let me show you something that'll blow your mind. When you type, the cat sat on the, your brain already knows the next word is probably mat, or chair, or couch. That's because you understand grammar, context, and physical reality. Cats sit on things. Things have surfaces. Simple. ChatGPT gets to that same answer, but through a completely different route. It's seen thousands of sentences with cat sat on the, followed by various words, and it's calculated the mathematical probability of each possible next word. Not because it understands cats or sitting or furniture, because the numbers say those words show up together a lot. It's like if someone gave you a massive spreadsheet showing every 5-word sequence in every book ever written, and you had to predict the next word just by looking at the patterns. No pictures, no context, no actual meaning. Just cold, hard statistics about which words follow which other words. And here's where it gets interesting. This approach works shockingly well most of the time. That's why ChatGPT can write a decent email or explain quantum physics in simple terms. The patterns it's learned are so vast and complex that they capture a lot of what we think of as meaning. But then you run into the edge cases. The moments where pattern matching breaks down because what you're asking for requires actual understanding, not just statistical likelihood. Well, let me tell you about something I call the context collapse. This is when ChatGPT loses track of what you actually meant, because it's treating each part of your message as separate probability calculations instead of one unified intention. You've seen this happen. You write something like, I need help with my resume. I'm applying for marketing jobs, but I have a background in teaching. How do I make that transition clear? And ChatGPT might give you generic resume advice, or focus only on the teaching part, or completely miss that you're trying to bridge two different careers. Why? Because it processed resume as one cluster of patterns, marketing jobs as another cluster, and teaching background as a third cluster. Then it tried to generate text that satisfied all three clusters at once. But your actual intention, the thing you really wanted, existed in the relationship between those pieces, in the transition, in the specific challenge of reframing teaching experience for marketing roles. And that relationship, that's way harder to capture with pattern matching alone. Your brain does this effortlessly. You read that question and immediately understand the core problem: career transition, reframing skills, making teaching look relevant to marketing, one unified challenge. ChatGPT sees statistical relationships between word clusters. It's calculating probabilities on multiple levels simultaneously, trying to generate text that fits the overall pattern of resume help, while incorporating elements from marketing and teaching. Sometimes it works. Sometimes you get Frankenstein advice that technically addresses your words but totally misses your meaning. This matters because it explains why being specific helps, not because ChatGPT understands specificity better, because specificity gives it stronger patterns to match against. More constraints on what words should probably come next. Now here's another pattern that catches everyone. I call it the confidence illusion. ChatGPT always sounds sure of itself. Always sounds like it knows exactly what you meant and has the perfect answer, even when it's completely wrong. Think about the last time you asked ChatGPT a question and got a response that sounded authoritative but was actually garbage. Maybe it made up facts. Maybe it completely misunderstood your question, but it wrote that wrong answer with the same confident tone it uses for correct answers. Why does this happen? Because confidence isn't based on actual knowledge for ChatGPT, it's based on pattern strength. When the statistical patterns are strong, when it's seen lots of similar word sequences during training, it generates text smoothly and confidently. When patterns are weak, it still generates text smoothly and confidently. Because smoothness and confidence are just patterns themselves that it learned to replicate. It's like talking to someone who learned English by reading millions of books but has never actually lived in the real world. They can use words perfectly, string together beautiful sentences, sound absolutely certain about things. But they don't know if those words connect to anything real. They just know which words go together in patterns that sound right. This is why ChatGPT will confidently tell you about events that never happened or books that don't exist. The pattern of historical event description or book summary is strong enough that it generates plausible sounding text. But there's no reality check happening. No actual verification against truth, just pattern completion. And here's what makes this even more surprising. The better ChatGPT gets at sounding human, the more we trust it. We're wired to assume that something that communicates fluently must understand what it's saying. That's true for humans, it's not true for AI. When your friend speaks confidently about a topic, you can generally trust they have actual knowledge backing that confidence. When ChatGPT does the same thing, all you know is that it's seen similar word patterns frequently during training. Those are not the same thing. Let me show you another sneaky pattern. This one's about how ChatGPT handles ambiguity, and it's wild once you notice it. Humans are incredible at using context to resolve ambiguous language. If I say, "I went to the bank," you immediately figure out whether I mean riverbank or financial bank based on everything else I've said. If I mentioned money, you assume financial. If I mentioned fishing, you assume river. Effortless. ChatGPT does something different. It calculates which meaning is more probable based on the surrounding words, then commits hard to that interpretation. But here's the sneaky part, it doesn't know it's making a choice. It's not thinking, bank could mean two things, let me figure out which one. It's just following the strongest statistical pattern. So when you write something genuinely ambiguous, ChatGPT picks the most common interpretation based on its training data and runs with it. No hesitation, no asking for clarification, just confident assumption. This is why you sometimes get responses that seem to answer a completely different question. ChatGPT resolved an ambiguity differently than you intended, then generated a perfectly coherent response to its interpretation. From its perspective, it nailed it. From your perspective, it totally missed the point. Real understanding includes the ability to recognize ambiguity, to pause and think, wait, this could mean multiple things. ChatGPT doesn't pause. It just predicts the next most likely word based on everything that came before, billions of times per second. And here's the part that connects everything. ChatGPT doesn't have what I call semantic grounding. That's a fancy way of saying it doesn't connect words to actual things in the real world. When you say apple, you think of a physical object, red or green. Crunchy, sweet, grows on trees. You have memories of eating apples, seeing them at the grocery store, maybe picking them at an orchard. The word apple points to a real thing with properties and relationships and sensory experiences. For ChatGPT, apple is a node in a massive web of statistical relationships. It's strongly connected to words like fruit, red, iPhone, pie, tree, computer, but it's not connected to the experience of an apple. It's connected to the pattern of how apple is used in text. This works shockingly well for generating language. Language is patterns, after all. But it falls apart when understanding requires knowledge of how things actually work in physical reality. You ask ChatGPT how to fix a leaking faucet, and it can generate text that sounds like plausible instructions because it's seen many how to fix X patterns. But it doesn't know what water feels like. Doesn't know the physical properties of metal or rubber. Doesn't know the experience of actually turning a wrench. It's simulating understanding through pattern matching. Most of the time, that simulation is good enough. The patterns it's learned include enough practical wisdom that the advice works. But sometimes you get instructions that sound right but are physically impossible or dangerous. Because physical possibility isn't in the pattern, just linguistic probability. Let me paint you a picture of what this looks like in practice. Meet Jessica. Jessica's a graphic designer trying to use ChatGPT to help with client emails. She types, "Write an email to my client saying the designs will be late." She's stressed, needs it quick, wants something professional. ChatGPT writes a nice apology email, sounds good, but it's weirdly formal. Uses phrases like, "Please accept our sincere apologies for any inconvenience this may cause." Very corporate. Not at all how Jessica talks to her clients. Jessica doesn't understand why. She said what she wanted clearly. Write an email. Designs are late. What's the problem? Here's what happened. ChatGPT saw write an email and activated patterns associated with professional correspondence. Saw client and late and activated apology patterns. Combined them into the most statistically common version of a professional apology email. But Jessica's actual need? She has a specific relationship with this specific client. They text each other memes. She wanted something apologetic but warm, something that sounds like her. That context, the relationship, the tone, the personality wasn't in her prompt. So ChatGPT defaulted to the most common pattern. Jessica tries again, make it more casual. ChatGPT adjusts, now it's too casual. Hey, sorry about the delay. Not quite right either. She's getting frustrated. Why can't it just understand what she wants? Because what she wants requires understanding her relationship with this client, her communication style, the nuance of professional but friendly. That's not something ChatGPT can extract from make it more casual. That's human understanding. Now compare that to Marcus. Marcus is also a graphic designer. Also needs to email a client about a delay. But Marcus understands something about how ChatGPT works. He writes, "Write an email to my client Tom about a 2-day delay on the branding designs. Tom and I have worked together for 3 years. We usually keep things light and professional. I want to apologize, but not grovel. Mention I'm being thorough to get it right. Keep it under 80 words. Notice what Marcus did? He fed ChatGPT the context it needs to match better patterns. Client's name, nature of relationship, tone guidelines, specific reason for delay, word limit. He's not expecting ChatGPT to understand his relationship. He's giving it enough information that the pattern it generates will be closer to what he actually wants. And it works. ChatGPT produces something much closer to Marcus's voice because it has more specific patterns to match against. not because it understands Marcus better, because it has more constraints. The difference between Jessica and Marcus isn't intelligence or skill. It's understanding how pattern matching works. Jessica expected human-like comprehension. Marcus understood he was working with statistical prediction and adjusted accordingly. Here's what most people don't realize about why this matters so much. ChatGPT isn't actually understanding what you mean. It's making incredibly sophisticated guesses about what words should probably come next based on patterns it's seen in billions of text examples. And most of the time, those guesses are good enough that they look like understanding. But they're not understanding. They're prediction. Really, really good prediction based on unimaginably large data sets and complex math. But prediction nonetheless. The people who get the best results from ChatGPT aren't the ones who write the most naturally. They're the ones who understand they're essentially programming a probability machine. They provide context, they're specific, they iterate, they guide the pattern matching process toward what they actually want. It's not about being smarter or more tech savvy. It's about understanding the difference between meaning and pattern matching, between comprehension and statistical likelihood, between understanding your intention and predicting the most probable next word. And once you see it this way, everything changes. Those weird responses make sense. Those moments where it gets you aren't magic, they're just cases where the patterns align with your intention. And those moments where it completely misses the point, those are cases where patterns and meaning diverged. This isn't a failure of ChatGPT, it's just the reality of how it works. It's an incredibly powerful pattern matching system that can generate remarkably human-like text, but it's not human. It doesn't think like you think, it doesn't understand like you understand. So here's what we've uncovered. ChatGPT processes language through mathematical patterns, not actual comprehension. It predicts probable next words based on statistical relationships learned from massive data sets. When those patterns align with what you mean, it feels like magic. When they don't, it feels like the AI went rogue. Remember the context collapse? That's ChatGPT treating your unified intention as separate statistical components. The confidence illusion? That's smoothly generated text that sounds authoritative regardless of accuracy. The ambiguity problem? That's defaulting to the most common interpretation without recognizing other possibilities exist. And the big one, semantic grounding. ChatGPT connects words to other words through patterns, not to actual meaning or real-world experience. It simulates understanding through incredibly sophisticated pattern matching. Usually that's enough. Sometimes it's not. The question isn't whether ChatGPT understands you. The question is whether you understand how ChatGPT processes what you're saying, because now you know it's not reading for meaning. It's calculating probabilities, and that changes everything about how you should communicate with it. You can't unknow this now. Next time you use ChatGPT and it nails exactly what you wanted, you'll think, nice, the pattern's aligned. When it misses completely, you'll think, right, it's following the most probable path. Not my actual intention. You're working with a prediction machine, not a mind reader. So next time you type something into ChatGPT, ask yourself, am I writing like I'm talking to a person who understands context and intention? Or am I giving a pattern matching system enough information to predict what I actually want? Because those are two very different things. And once you see that difference, you'll never use AI the same way again.